I got to tell you, we feel so connected to Harmony Fellowship. I got to tell you, because Reverend Pat and Reverend Glenn have become our friends and really our ministers in many ways. And we've met. It's crazy, the connection we have. David, Patricia's son, Matt, and his partner, Bobby, when they got married up in Connecticut, no, it was New York. New York, and all of a sudden this tall man with white hair comes out to perform the ceremony. We're at the wedding, and I thought, my goodness, that's a familiar message. That is a new thought message, and I wasn't expecting to hear one in Nyack, New York. And then I find out it's Matt's stepdad, and we became friendly, and then they came to our house for Christmas, and then they spoke at our church in February, and now we're staying with them. We love your ministers. And then I got to meet... And then we got to meet Patricia and Jean and a few others of you this past February up in New York. And I got to perform a wedding ceremony. And for two people I had never met before that day. And I saw how beloved they are. And how much you love each other. It's really impressive to see a group of people who love each other. And so congratulations to you and your fellowship. There's a teaching in the Bible from our friend, our brother, our way shower Jesus that says, "Be ye as a little child to enter into the kingdom." Be ye as a little child. Today's talk is called "They Promised." And that's what happened for me. When I came into my spiritual teaching, I found my teachers. To me, they promised me stuff, and I was like a little kid coming in. Well, you know how you do with your parents, but you promised. You promised we could go to the movies. Well, Jesus promised I could get into heaven. Promised I could get into heaven, and it's not a place I'm going to when I die. It's a place I go to every time I remember God and that I am good and that you are good. I got to include you in the scenario. I can't leave you out and still know that I'm good. And that's really what the gift that Jesus gave us. When he says, "I am the way and the truth and the life, and follow me," and what he really meant was, I can't get in if I don't bring you with me. If I leave even one of you out, I can't get in. And I don't like everybody. Have you ever wondered why some of the people you don't like have friends? What's that about? In all of my pursuits of truth, I have been promised stuff. First, I went through 12-step healing, and I was promised things. I remember one night there was this great big man in the front of the room, and he said, "God has better things in store for you than anything you could ever imagine." And I thought, ooh, because I could imagine some pretty wild things. Cars, money, other stuff at my convenience with no responsibility. I could imagine all these wild things. What I could not imagine was serenity. I could not imagine peace. I thought I had to get the stuff to get the peace, to get the serenity. I did not understand it was the other way around. And so I came into that, but see, I believed them. Jesus said, "You will do all things I do and even greater than this." It's like, oh, isn't that cool? Because I think he did some pretty amazing stuff. And I will do even greater than that. All I have to do is surrender all my thoughts and my whole life over to the care of God. But outside of that, in order to do that great stuff, but is it such a sacrifice to surrender all that stuff? Paul later on in the Bible says, when I became a man, I had to give up childish things. And I thought, what are those childish things that you have to give up? And I thought, well, lack, limitation, and my victim. That's what I've got. Those are the childish things I've got to give up in order to know the whole kingdom, not just part of it. We didn't come here to learn how to manage our misery, in case you didn't know that. We're not here to learn a bunch of affirmations just to assuage our misery, but keep it. We're here because we're promised we don't have to have misery. It's a temporary condition based on a temporary thought. And so I look at that. Now, I in those 12-step rooms, I used to go and I'd sit in the back there of the smoking section because I enjoyed that section. I took advantage of that section. But there was this woman who used to come in, and she would rant and rave about her day. Oh, man, she'd go off. But at the end of it, she would say, but I know God's will for me is to be happy, joyous, and free, so I'm just going to keep coming back. Well, that was news to me. I did not know God's will for me was to be happy, joyous, and free. I had no idea. I didn't grow up hearing that message. I don't remember that being told in my church that I grew up in. I just had never heard it before. This woman would say it every night at this midnight meeting. And so, happy, joyous, and free. And I thought, well, God's will can't not be done. So perhaps I'd like to align what I think is my will with that, what I believe in God. And happy, joyous, and free. Happy, joyous, and free. Well, how about that? I could get on board with that. So I started embracing a new concept of God beyond Santa Claus. Where you bad, you're getting nothing for Christmas. And my church was, you're bad, you're going to hell. And it's all. I say these New Thought churches, oh man, they'd be so big if we just had guilt or hell or something. The only reason to come is because you love yourself. And some of us don't feel that's reason enough. But I do know there's two really good times to come to this. The times you want to and the times you don't want to. Those are the two best times to get in the car and come to church. And hear this message reinforced over and over again. I once thought, how many times do I have to hear this? And I thought, as many times as I need to. It's all so simple. Truth and New Thought are all so simple. So, 1997. I was brought to a Unity church. I maybe once or twice before. I just quit smoking, and I went, and I heard this guy screaming out on a clear day you could see forever at Avery Fisher Hall in New York, and I thought, oh, show tunes. I could go to this church. And then, she just got that. And then the minister there, his name was Richard Barnes. He's not with us anymore. It was Eric Butterworth's sanctuary, but it was Richard Barnes speaking, and he was funny. And we laughed, and I had never laughed in church before. And it was just wonderful. And I went a few more times, and then I took a break. And then one Sunday after Christmas, in 1996, I went back. Also, it was earlier that I was brought. It was 96, the last Sunday in December, and I went back. I woke up that morning. I thought, I need something. What is it? And I heard Unity, and I went. And that minister that day, his name is Paul, and he was talking about Leviticus and all those abominations to God and to man. And what I found out that day is I wasn't one of them. Those were written for their culture. They were written to take a group of uncivilized people and make them more civilized and controllable, quite frankly, because some of those are very practical. There's a reason why you didn't eat pork then and shellfish and stuff. It wasn't safe to eat it. There's other things that are ridiculous. And quite frankly, the homosexuality thing, what that's about is you're not making more for the culture if you're indulging in homosexuality. So they suddenly had to take something that nobody had a problem with and make it wrong. There's other things. Wearing clothing of two different fabrics. If anybody knows that, come to me and talk to me afterward. I still don't understand the rule for that. I get it, the woman wearing a red dress, it seduces a man away from his family, and they want to build families. I get a lot of those things. But I'm not an abomination, and neither are you, is what I found out that day. In fact, what I found out that day from that lovely minister is that I was good, and that I had always been good, and I will always be good, and it had nothing to do with how I had behaved. Thank goodness. Because I had behaved pretty poorly. And it had nothing to do with how I felt. I didn't have to feel good to be good. It's because God is that I am. Period. Period. Because God is, I am. I don't need any reason that I am good other than that. And I can still go off and have deplorable behavior, and I am still good. And so when we pick up those newspapers and we turn on CNN and we listen to that news that scares us, and you got the crazy drivers on the highway that scare us, and we have our family that scares us, to know I am good, and you are good, and you are good, and you are good, and you are good. I don't have to like you for you to be good, and you don't have to like me for me to be good. I used to work with children on a volunteer basis. Through my practicum towards ordination, I went to a place called Boys and Girls Village in Connecticut. I went there. We had done a Christmas outreach for them, and when the woman from there came and spoke at our church about it, I thought, I would like to go there. I'd never worked with children in my life. I was afraid of kids. And so I thought, but I have something to offer. And what I wanted to take in was a 12-power meditation that I do. And so I talked to this woman, and she said, well, I've never heard of such a thing. And it would really be out of the ordinary, but let me talk to my supervisor, because we need to work out of the box with these kids. The kids in Boys and Girls Village, most of them have come out of a hospital, either because someone else has hurt them or they hurt themselves, but they can't be at home right now. There's a lot of autism. There's a lot of stuff. They're anywhere from 5 to 14 years old. And most of them go to school every day, but there's a special education for them and things. But otherwise, they're locked into this place. And I was the first volunteer they ever let come in and work with the kids. I'm very proud of that. Because I went, and her supervisor said, well, we have to work outside our box. And I gave her my CD, my meditation, which I didn't even think to bring any of here. And I went in, and we sat in a circle. I sat all the kids in a circle. I always had a supervisor there with me, so we stay clean. And we started the circle with, this circle is good, and I am good in this circle. And I'd have them repeat it. And then I would explain, you know, some people haven't been very nice to you, and here's why. They forgot they were good. And when they forgot they were good, they forgot you were good. Now, don't agree with them, because some of you have already started to forget that you are good. And I said, now, and then we went around the circle, and each one said, I am good. I am good. I am good. And one week I'd been away for a week, and my supervisor said to me, I forgot to tell you, last week when you weren't here, not because I wasn't there, but one of the kids went a little berserk, was throwing some stuff, and two of the other kids came to me and said, he forgot he was good. Isn't that the best? Isn't that the best? That, you know, the things we pick up on. Because I said, now, would you take responsibility for remembering each of you are good when they forget? And who here would be responsible for remembering that your brother and your sister over there are good even when they have forgotten? Because you want them, you need them to remember you're good on the days you forget. And some would raise their hands, not all of them. And then we had this other lesson. I said, because you know why you're here, don't you? And they said, well, they'd had all these reasons. I said, no, that's not why you're here. You're here to learn how to be big. This is a training ground to be big in the world. And you need to learn it. And I said, now, do you know what it means to be big? And I started them with the lesson, being big is when you want to steal and you don't steal. Being big is when you want to lie and you don't lie. And one kid raised his hand. He said, being big is when you want to spit on somebody and you don't. I thought that's true. That is very true. And one girl, because we can always find someone less fortunate than us to not like in a group, to make fun of, to pick on, when we forget that we're good. And there's one young girl, she'd had so many of the epileptic fits, she had no muscles left here, and so she would drool a lot. And so some of the other girls in that group were giving her a problem. But she raised her hand, and she said, it's being big when you remember somebody else is good, even when they forgot you're good. And I said, you just became the teacher today. You see, this bigness is part of our memory that we are good, that we cannot not be good. And to live my life every day with that as a little child, with that innocence. Wait a minute, I'm good. I don't have to hate my neighbor. Wait a minute, I'm good. I don't have to be afraid of money. I'm good. I don't have to be afraid of God. I don't have to, if I eat a cupcake, I don't have to declare I'm being bad. Bless that cupcake. Authorize it to treat you very, very well. Do not give it authority to abuse you. Now, there's a bunch of statements here that I like, and I want to read these. Some of you may be very familiar with these. These are the 9-step promises from the 12 steps of AA. And these, to me, were what kept me coming back because they offered me something. And so I like to pass these along. You don't have to be an addict for this kind of stuff. But it says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, let me tell you what that phase is, because it has everything to do with us. That phase is the amends phase. Amends means to rethink. The phase is the rethinking of our victim, rethinking of our lack, rethinking of our loss, the rethinking of anything that is less than the ideal of God, what we know to be the ideal of God. So it says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. It says, we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. Imagine that you don't have to hate anything about your past, anything. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. To surrender my fear. I don't come here today promising you stuff. I really don't. I cannot promise you a new car, but I do have one. I cannot promise you a big, beautiful home, and I have one. I cannot promise you a satisfying, enriching relationship, but I have one. What I can promise you is that if you desire God more than you desire all that stuff, you'll know what to do with that stuff when you get it. That's what I can promise you. David's going to come up here for a second here and talk about his workshop this afternoon, because he has a pathway to those promises. And so listen to him.
Hello. It's always nice to stand in front of this group. So very quickly, what I'm going to do, how many people have done the thought exchange with me? Oh, good, yes. So a lot of people, terrific. And the thing is, just because you did it once, it's different every time. So sometimes people say, oh, I learned that already. I'm still learning it, and I do it every day. What I noticed was that we all understand these principles. We all know that if you think positively, good things will happen, that you have to take on a new thought, et cetera, et cetera. What I began to notice for myself and others is that we don't seem to do it. We know the principle, and before we know it, we're back at our old thoughts. And I thought, we're not stupid, we're not lazy, we're spiritually intuitive and interested people, and yet everybody seems to have trouble with it. So I began to research that, and what I discovered was that, contrary to what you would think, when we take on what we call a positive thought, if that positive thought had negative repercussions earlier in life, like if you had said, I can do this, and someone slapped you across the face when you said that, you will feel extremely physically uncomfortable when you take on that positive thought. And we think erroneously that that means that there's something wrong, and we get away from the physical discomfort by going back to what I call the protective or negative thought. So what we do in this workshop is we look at, since our lives only take place in the world of our experience. I don't even know if you're sitting here. I couldn't prove it. I know I see you. If I were dreaming, I would too. But I have an interior experience. That's all I've got. We look at the world in front of us, and instead of saying the world did this, the world did that, we use it as a mirror. We say, what am I thinking? What thought do I notice when I look at my life? It's there for me to notice my thought. We then say, what would you like to see in front of you? Which, of course, if the world is a mirror, would be your thought. We then exchange the thought for the thought that you want to hold. But here's where the real work comes in. When you take on that thought that you've always longed to take on, we then stop and notice what's going on in your body. And invariably, your heart is pounding, your throat is tight, you feel like you're going to throw up, your hands are shaking, etc. It's like people often say to me, imagine how you're going to feel when you're out there opening night on Broadway. I know how I feel, like I'm going to throw up. But because I'm willing to hold the thought, to be out there on Broadway, I'm willing to feel that way. So what we will do is you will locate the thoughts you want to hold, which must reflect as themselves if you can hold them, and you will learn to be with the discomfort that comes with holding the thoughts you want to hold. So there's no such thing as releasing, letting go, relax, attract. You are just in truth with the experience of the kind of success you want and the thought you want. It's very life-changing. We sit in a circle and talk. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You get as much out of it whether you talk or not. So it's at 1 o'clock. So join me right here. Go out and have a bite and come back, and we'll see you there.
One other thing I want to do here is Reverend Patricia here, Reverend Pat, I don't know what you call her. I see her name, Patricia, on Facebook, so I always want, but she's Pat. She's Pat. And this weekend she's been reminding David of me of something I had forgotten about, which is keep an evidence journal. A journal of the evidence of answered prayer, of what happened when you changed your thought and what you saw. And one of the things I had always wanted to do was sing. Because I worked in nightclubs for years, and I lit these great singers, and I was always afraid. I was afraid to get up on the stage. I was afraid. I was always so afraid. And one day I was in David's apartment early on in the relationship, and he was singing, and I pretended to sing. You do that silly singing. And he said, just hear the note. Just hear the note and then see it go across the room. And I did that. And it's like, oh, listen to that. I have a voice. I have a voice. And then I was in a songwriting workshop of his at a retreat. I had done one the year before at the Unity Retreat in New York, and I had written a silly song. And then the second year, I thought, well, I want to write a more serious song, something more about my passion, something more that expresses what I think. And I have done this. I've sung this song all over the country. And I am proof. I am proof that you don't know my background, and some other time we'll talk about all that. You know some of it. I am proof that with new thought, you can have everything, and you can do whatever you want. I am also proof that after you get everything, you can forget and begin to lose it all too. And then I'm proof that you can remember again. But I thought I would demonstrate with this song that I wrote, and I want to be very clear here that David is accompanying me, but he did not write the lyrics. He did not write the music to this. In fact, he wanted me to make sure I told you that today. He likes me to get all the credit. So this is a song of my passion, my excitement in life. Yes. Lemon-flavored poppy seed, snickerdoodle set me free. Chocolate chip I like a lot, I like it best, nice and hot. Bring me the cookies I need. Ginger snaps are great with milk, fudgy brownie smooth as silk. Nutter butter, peanut butter makes my heart go a flutter. Bring me the cookies I need. Oreos, double stuff 'em, Chips Ahoy, how I love 'em. Snackwells, the Keebler Elves, macaroons and Lorna Doones. Malamars, they fill my jars. Pepperidge Farm, they do no harm. May appeal to the greater masses, but old molasses tastes like... I don't like the chocolate swirl. Matter of fact, it makes me hurl. I prefer a Nilla wafer. Nilla wafer is much safer. Vienna fingers, pecan sandies. What's the diff? They both taste dandy. Cookies are the thing for me because they are so sugary. I like to shout at a Girl Scout when chocolate mint is what I'm about. Christmas cookies are the best, but let me mention all the rest. Mrs. Fields, Famous Amos, Animal Crackers are not the same as Archway, Nabisco. They're made with Crisco. Cookies are the thing for me because they are so sugary. Oh, bring me the cookies. Oh, bring me the cookies, please. Bring me the cookies. God, bring me the cookies I need. All over the country. And now I sang it in Texas. So, we invite you to remember when you want to do something, because I'm sure you're all accomplished at so much, but if there's still something you're holding out on. Somebody said to me that, oh, you wouldn't recognize Happy Birthday. And I said, if you worked with David, you'd sing Happy Birthday. It's just that simple. It really is that simple, but you'd have to align your thoughts to say, I could sing Happy Birthday.
And feel anxious doing it.
So what we invite you to know is, I sang my first, I'm not going to do it today, but I just sang my first standard at our recent retreat. And I sang it good. Any thought you don't yet see, it's on its way. Thank you for having us.